Good afternoon and welcome back to our webinar series that we are putting on in conjunction with the Victorian Department of Education. We are very excited to work with the department and helping department schools across the state make the most of G Suite and Chromebooks. But we know that every time we put one of these on, there are a whole lot of teachers from places well beyond Victorian Department of Education schools, and everybody is most welcome. And thank you for joining us, if you're joining us live or if you are watching the replay afterwards. This afternoon, we are going to be talking about creating and sharing screencasts. We didn't really talk about this during the slides or whatever.
Sorry, it was very bad.
And there is going to be a bit of a focus originally on Screencastify, but we are aware of the fact that not all schools have access to Screencastify. So Jim and Chris, if you've joined in previously, I've talked about how nimble and flexible and adaptable they are. And so they are going to be sharing a whole lot of the pedagogy behind the value of using video in your classroom, whether that's a virtual classroom or a face-to-face classroom, and a range of different resources to do that with, and a guarantee that everybody will have at least access to a couple of the different tools that they are sharing today. Before we jump into that, I did just want to, if you haven't joined us previously, welcome. Please do jump into the chat. You'll see that the chat is there. We'd love you to introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and as we go through the webinar, ask any questions at all. Jim and Chris love stopping what they're doing to answer questions. I mean that quite seriously. I know that could have come across as sarcastic. I genuinely actually mean that they love hearing from you guys as the webinar is going on. So anything at all, there is no such thing as a silly question, only the one you don't ask. Just finally from me is that I just want to flag, if you haven't joined us before, we've talked about this every week, but Google did put together at the start of the COVID-19 crisis around the world a wonderful site called Teach From Home. I realised that in Victoria, if you're in a Victorian school, we are starting the process next week of moving to not be teaching from home, over the next few weeks. And many people who join us for these webinars won't be teaching from home already. So we really like to think of this as learning from anywhere resources. And last webinar, when I talked about this, I just did flag that there have been some really great updates on there, including a whole lot of resources for families. So if you haven't checked it out, teachfromhome.google. And as Jim, when he's talked about this previously, has said, you really have to fight that urge to type a .com on the end, because I know that's what we always want to do. So this afternoon, this evening, this morning, whenever it is that you are joining us, we are going to have the wonderful Jim Still from Deploy Learning and Chris Hart from Unstuck Learning Design, equally as wonderful. Didn't want to, make sure that adjective was in front of your name too, Chris.
Good recovery.
Who are going to lead us through the webinar. And as I said, please do make sure you add anything to the chat. And Jim, I think you are going to have to give a special shout out to Heather, who is in the chat right now and has, I believe you have some pretty cool uses of the Bitmojis that Heather had shared previously. I'm not sure if they're coming into the webinar, Heather, but I have seen firsthand what Jim has managed to do with those Bitmojis. So look forward to that. All right, over to you guys. Thank you. I will join you at the end. Please ask questions in the chat throughout and enjoy.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Kimberly. If you want to go ahead and call your neighbor to tell them to turn on the blower, now is the time. And but Chris, can I talk really quickly about Heather has inspired me to join a Facebook Bitmoji Mania site. So I'm in this group where, Heather, I feel like my Bitmoji skills have tripled since the last time we saw you. And I'm going to show some today.
I thought I was a bit of a nerd, but between you and Heather, I mean, it's spectacular, right? You and your Bitmoji skills are amazing.
I feel like it's reignited my Bitmoji desire, which
Bitmoji
sounds
game.
Good. Yeah, there you go, the Bitmoji game.
Everybody.
Nice to see you, Chris.
Nice to see you, Jim. I don't see you enough. I'm looking forward to that moment when we're actually able to go and grab a coffee in real life. Before we get into the real meat of the session, we do want to do what we do every webinar, and that is a really important piece for us, is to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands upon which we meet today. And there will be different lands within Victoria and across Australia, and we have some international viewers as well popping in from time to time. But just to take a moment to acknowledge and to think about the the land that we're meeting on, and those people who for millennia have been the custodians and carers of that land and the waters and the skies, and to pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. And also from Jim and I, and we genuinely, from the bottom of our heart, want to acknowledge you who are here watching this live, or if you're watching it on a recorded later on. We want to acknowledge the time that you put in for your own professional learning as educators, to kind of hopefully, and Jim and I really stress a lot about this, is that everyone should have something to be able to take away from today and from all of our webinars. And we really do acknowledge the incredible work you've done for the young people and the families and the communities that you work in during these very tough and difficult times. And we want you to keep safe, and hopefully we're going to start moving from surviving through to thriving. So yeah, we just want to take that time out to acknowledge you as well. Jim, if we want some help, apart from the amazing webinars that we go to, where else can we go?
Well, it's funny you ask, Chris. The slide is right here for me to talk about it, and it's great because Chris and I we obviously have the pleasure of working with Kimberly and the Google team here in Australia, but there are so many other people that are also Google certified trainers and innovators, and they everybody's gotten together to put together this website. And it allows you to go on to here and schedule a time, or say request a time to meet one-to-one with any innovator and trainer out there. Just be really specific about what questions you have, and a trainer will read that, and an innovator will read that and say, "Oh, this is a perfect fit for me," and they'll claim that time with you. So, as you're sort of working through this transition, maybe you're still teaching from home, but maybe you're trying to figure out, how do I take what I did here back into my classroom? This is the perfect place for you to go and get that one-to-one support from people who have qualified to really around their Google skills, but also their pedagogical skills and just their teaching experience to help you. So it's great. I love it. You have to be quick to the draw, Chris, when you go on here. That there's a lot of people who are eager and ready to help. That it's hard to claim that one-to-one time.
What we're going to do in terms of the agenda for the rest of this session is we are going to just revisit our core learning design principles, but we're really looking at video today, and specifically for a chunk of time looking at screencasting for learning, and our kind of number one go-to screencasting app or extension, which is called Screencastify, which we know not everyone has access to yet, but we are very confident that everyone in Victorian Department Schools Central Tenant will have access to it very soon, I'm sure, because it is a wonderful extension and really powerful for learning. We are going to talk about how we share video, and then some other ways of capturing video and using it as a really powerful medium for us in learning. And just before, for those of you who aren't in Victorian schools, that's absolutely not a problem. But the learning design principles that we do use when we're designing these webinars and thinking about the pedagogy behind the technology is, how do we ensure a strong connection with and between students and teachers at this time? And video, in fact, is one of those really powerful pieces in that. Being able to see each other's faces or being able to hear each other's voices is actually a really important piece about developing connection. Engaging our students in collaboration and rich learning experiences, so enriching learning experiences with video. And how might we see learning, growth, and thinking in the online space? Well, in fact, screencasting is one of the most powerful ways to do that. So we're really hitting our learning design principles well in this webinar. The high impact teaching strategies, again, we always bring these up because these are core to some of the Victorian Department's, or the Victorian Department's strategy around improving teaching and learning. And again, actually video can be used so much in all of these, I think, more or less. So I'm just going to kind of leave that there just for a second. If you're not aware of it, you can jump on the website and Google it and have a look at it in more detail. But it's important for us that everything we do in these webinars is related to improving learning and supporting you in your teaching. Jim, but why video?
Well, I think that it's my real love. You know that, Chris. It's actually, I went to university for that, and for 10 years I worked in the television and film business. And before I became a teacher, and when I became a teacher in my 30s, which maybe dates me now, it was amazing, that transition, because that storytelling and the ability to communicate using this visual language was was a skill that I had honed in the business. But then when I brought it into the classroom to teach it, it was also that those skills came in handy just to be a great storyteller and a great teacher to my students. You know what I mean? It was one of those things where it changed everything, right? So just for my students to be able to go in and learn how to make movies and learn how to tell stories using this medium that's been around since 1895. I always joke that people, we're all film natives. If we always hear teachers use that excuse like, oh, I'm not a digital native, I'm a digital immigrant, or whatever they say. Well, you're a film native. We're all film natives. It's been around for a long time. And I think what's great about this is that today is for us to talk about how do we convey messages to our students, and how do our students make their thinking visible back to us. And it's really around video is one of the many ways to do that. But video is such an important piece. I think another thing to be really conscious of is that we live in a world today where everything is accessible, especially around film, right? And about video. I joke about this, Chris, a lot. Like when I was in high school, I would come to school and I'd be like, hey, dude, did you watch that show last night? And the kid would be like, no, I missed it. And I'm like, you'll never see it again. Like, and that was the way it was, right? Did you watch that cartoon on Saturday morning? No. Well, you're out. Like, we can't relate anymore. Well, that's not true anymore, because like literally everything is on YouTube, and you can search pretty much anything on YouTube and find it, right? And I think that's there's real joy in that, but it's also that's how we connect to our students, because the concept of YouTube has taught us that everybody wants to be able to pause you, rewind you, and watch you again. And that opportunity, when we're in direct instruction in front of our students, they can't do that. They wouldn't have the nerve in some cases to stop you. Hey, can you repeat yourself exactly word for word again? I'm writing notes, and it's and I think that's an important thing for us to remember, because the students can control the pace of their learning when they watch it, when they see it on video. I'm not saying that all your lessons need to go on video, but I am certainly saying that there is an opportunity for you to be able to condense what your 40-minute lecture is down into a 5-minute soundbite that kids can chunk out, right? And I think what's really important to know, and I do a lot of training on making movies, and I do a lot of training on how to visual language and visual literacy and all those great things that come out from all this. But video can be as complicated as you want it to be, or as simple as you want it to be, right? There's so much forgiveness when it comes to movies. Just looking at YouTube videos, there's a lot of forgiveness there. Mm. So I think that's just something just important to understand. But I think, Chris, I feel like when I was talking to you before, there's a real opportunity to really talk about dual coding, right? Yeah. Chat about that.
Absolutely. Just 1 second before, because you made me think of something and I had to throw it in straight away, is when you're talking about being able to get on YouTube, and I think there's something like 400 hours of YouTube videos uploaded every minute. 500 hours.
About 2 years ago, it was 500 hours. So
there's so much up there. And one of the challenges with the YouTube and things is curation and making sure you find the great stuff. We're just going to pop into the chat in a second a link to a wonderful site that I came across a little while ago, which is it's called thekidssshouldseethis.com. And it's a bunch of curated videos by things like science topics, but it's just fascinating stuff, like incredibly awesome videos for kids, which have been curated by educators. So I just wanted to share that with everyone before I forgot. Before we get into the use of kind of the technology around screencasting, we are going to look at dual coding a little bit. And for those of you who are interested in educational research, dual coding is it's been around for decades, actually, as a concept from Alan Pavio. And the theory around dual coding and how we move information from our short-term memory into our longer-term memory. So how do we make information sticky? And one of the things that is, if we have visual stimuli, then we create, which I love this idea, that we create in our heads a visual-spatial sketchpad, which is not easy to say, but that is essentially we are visualizing something. So literally those images that you've got up at the top of the screen there are hopefully helping you to visualize the concepts that we're looking at right now. So this idea of a visuospatial sketchpad is really interesting because what it allows us to do is process information synchronously. So rather than kind of processing it in a linear fashion, we're actually taking in a bunch of information at the same time. So if we've just got visual stimuli, then we tend to process that information synchronously, and we're tending to look at the bigger picture of how things connect. So that's why things like graphic organizers are incredibly useful for kids, but also things like video, the ability to share visual stimulus to students beyond just text. Verbal stimuli, and by verbal stimuli, by the way, that also includes reading. The idea that verbal stimuli, when I know it doesn't sound like it should be reading, but it is, when you're reading a passage in your head, which is kind of what we do, then you're going to be creating an auditory loop. And so that information is coming to you in an auditory loop. And the thing with an auditory loop is that you are sequentially processing. So you're only processing each idea as it is coming through this auditory input. Whereas with a visual stimulus, you're actually processing everything together. And what Pavio's theory of dual coding talks about is that if we can have both of these things happening, it's actually not an overload. You know, sometimes we worry about overloading visual stimulus and reading and talking and all those kind of things. They're actually complementary. And so they're actually able to help you to shift some of that short-term memory storage into long-term memory storage and make it stickier and easier to retrieve. However, that doesn't mean that you can just stick up any old visuals, and this is what Jim's saying about visual literacy as well. It doesn't mean you can stick up any old visuals. It does talk to you, and I'll just bring up the concepts there, which hopefully you'll see I have visually encoded, is when we're doing this is we actually have to cut out some of the noise. We have to remove anything that is peripheral. Now, to be honest, the Google for Education logo in the bottom left there is probably peripheral, and I should have taken it off this visual. But we need to cut things out. We also need to chunk it, and that's what I love about being able to use screencasting, because we can create just snippets. Like I don't want to watch anything that's more than 5 minutes long. So we can have snippets of video which are chunking up these concepts. So cutting down content to keep it really clear, the core messages, chunking it so that students are accessing it in small bites, and then coordinating it. And that's what I love about this idea of design, which I know Jim and I are both really passionate about, is how do you design your visuals to help kids understand them? So how do you coordinate your visuals? Do you make sure your text is all aligned? I know this is a silly thing, but like it's all the same font and it's all aligned here, that we're using simple visuals to help us to understand ideas. So hopefully I'm going to come back at the end of this webinar, if I remember to do it, and say, what are those 3 C's that we do in dual coding? And because this is a clear kind of auditory input and also a synchronous processing visual input, maybe you're going to remember what those 3 C's are. So there will be a test at the end of this. So we've got the kind of learning theory behind why video can be really powerful. But in terms of the applications, we definitely know things like instructional video. And we're just giving you some ideas here. We've got a brilliant resource which is going to be shared in the chat momentarily, which is 50 different ways to use screencasting, and with examples and video examples. But things like instructional videos, modeling thinking as a teacher. So actually modeling, for example, the creation of text, or modeling your thinking around a mathematical or a scientific equation. Actually asking questions through video. Using it as a stimulus for provocation, for example. So dropping a little video into on a Monday morning into classroom, which leaves some kind of cryptic clue about what learning is coming. Telling stories, stop and think. And as Jim mentioned before, this idea of the ability to stop video. So me actually saying, okay, kids, so what we're going to do is we're looking at this thing, and what I want you to do now is I want you to pause the video. And I think we mentioned a webinar a little while ago, the idea of pause, pounce, bounce as a way of asking questions. Pose a question, pause, choose someone to answer it, and then bounce that answer around. Well, you can do the pose and the pause with video. It's like, here's the question, now pause that video, and then you can get into the explanation afterwards. What might happen next. And then for students, like we're really keen for students to be creating screencasts. This isn't a production studio of teacher screencasts. This is really about getting kids to use it as well. And Jim's got some amazing, a brand new beta feature, which he's going to share with you, which I think is very exciting. But they can use it to create presentations, They can use it to create reflections on their learning, metacognition, which is obviously one of the really important high-impact teaching strategies, and for capturing evidence of learning. So we've already in the past webinars, and if this is your first webinar with us, there's about 1 million previous webinars, which we've looked at classroom and capturing evidence of learning, and screencastifying is one of them. And I just noticed that Joanna has put in the chat that she started using Screencastify after our last webinar, Jim, and she loves it, and she wants to do some further ideas, which she knows we will be providing today, which we promise we will. So if I can just get one of our genies to just drop into the chat that PDF, I love it, from Google Drive, which is the this Screencastify's 50 ways to use screencasts, and it is brilliant. So rather than us recreating the wheel, we wanted to share that with you. So that'll be coming into the chat really soon. So Jim, we've got the theory. We know why it's important. We know we've got a few different ideas of the ways we can do that. But let's get going into the actual nitty-gritty of how we make these things happen.
That's right. Let's do that. I just want to say, Chris, that as everybody's sort of trying to make excuses why they're running around with movies and sharing movies in their classroom, just refer back to those slides that Chris just shared. It's your excuse right out. It's like, it's learning. It's totally about teaching. It's great. I wish I had this when I was a teacher trying to justify the existence of my video program. But yes, this is great. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. We talk about using Screencastify today, and honestly, there are other screen casting programs. We really wanted to share this one today because I think both of us really love it, and I think there's some really cool features that they've added in over these last few weeks that make it an important thing to share. But towards the end, we'll also share a little bit more about other programs. We are obviously trying to stick with web-based programs today. Just simply because we're using Chromebooks, and but we also understand not everybody is using those, and that but there are other programs out there. But we're going to try to focus on using these web-based tools today. So what I want to do is just introduce you to Screencastify if you haven't used it before, and I want to just be able to show you that you could add this on. We talked, maybe I think we mentioned this at the start, that the central instance for Victoria, it does not have this the Screencastify on there yet, but I feel like I want to stop myself about what I'm going to say, but you can always go ahead and put that onto your personal account, and just have a play with it. And I'll share with you towards the end this beta program that Screencastify has come up with that will enable you, let's say that, to use Screencastify with your students. And I think you might find that very useful, because as Chris said just a second ago, we of course want to show you how to make screencasts and maybe share some tips around it, but we really want to encourage you to have your students do that as well, because to be able to showcase that, as Chris mentioned, modeling that thinking for you, not only for yourself, but also to hear what your students are thinking and how they're processing stuff is really important. Okay, so if you wouldn't mind just sharing my screen, and I'll just sort of give us and go for that. And I think, Phil, you're asking, is there a reason why Screencastify isn't available at the central instance? And Chris and I have chosen to not answer that question. And so I'm sure maybe somebody else can answer that for us.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm confident to say that it's on its way. I think it's one of those process things, Phil, that just takes a little bit of time for people for things to happen sometimes.
Yeah, and I think there's checks and balances, and people just need to make sure that the permissions and all the privacy settings adhere to what the state, the department is looking for, and there shouldn't be any issue with that either, because Screencastify, we've actually spoken to Screencastify and said, hey, can you make sure that these privacy settings are set, and they assured us that they are. So, and again, that's why we're not talking about it. It just sort of cycles us down into a hole. Let's move forward. If you wouldn't mind just sharing my screen, Genie in the Sky, that would be great, and then I could just walk us through the basic elements of how to get Screencastify. And all it takes is just a little click of a button, and then my screen will get shared by the Genie in the Sky.
I think the Genie's asleep. Come on, Genie, wake up.
And yeah, I agree, Phil. I think there is good news in there, and I think that it would be great. So Screencastify is an extension. It's a Chrome extension. We maybe talked about that a couple times ago. Maybe I can't remember when we did it, but we talk about Chrome extensions, and we always want to make sure that our Chrome extensions are working and they're on the up and up. And so we can go over to the Chrome Web Store or just Google Screencastify. You'll see it written there on the screen, and just put the word Chrome at the end, and it'll take you right to this page. And I've already installed it. All you have to do is come over here to the blue box and click it, add it to your browser, and then you should be ready to go. Up here, you'll see it up here in my top of my browser. So once you've installed it, you just have to click on it up here in the corner, and then it'll take you to a web page that just sort of verifies a couple of things. And I feel like I've added programs on live before, and here we are again. So I'm just going to model what every teacher does, and by that I mean no one reads anything. So I'm just going to click here. I'm assigned with my Google account, and basically I'm just saying, hey, that's totally cool, and you can have access to the things that you need access to. And then most importantly is this the idea of giving it access to the camera and a microphone, and then also make sure that this box is ticked. They have some new drawing and annotation tools that just came out a few weeks ago. So you want to hit that next. Once you hit that next, you want to give some permissions up here. It's like, hey, yes, I want to do that. I want to allow my computer, my microphone, and then just identify yourself as an educator. Everything else just seems like it's a trap. And I'm just hit grade school and go from there. So that's it. It takes me there, and it takes me to that website that houses all sorts of resources. And remember, these resources are useful not for any screencasting program. The Screencastify probably doesn't want me to say that, but just understand that you can make use of a lot of that. Okay, and then we're good. That's all it takes. So once you're set up, you go ahead and click on this button again, and then you have this window show up. Okay, so now you have this window, and I just want to show you a couple of things that are happening. One, Screencastify about a month or two ago said, hey, we're going to redesign things. We're going to give you 5 minutes for free. So that's awesome. If you need more than 5 minutes, and I would caution you to not do anything more than 5 minutes, then you can upgrade, and that's a system that maybe the department can work on. They have that connection now and get you guys access to more. But I really do always talk about not, Chris mentioned before about chunking, and it's just an opportunity for you to chunk out your lessons into 5 minute digestible pieces, as opposed to being like, I'm going to go on for 15 minutes and expecting a kid to sit through that. So anyways, that's an important thing to understand, is that 5 minutes is probably the max, I think. And here you have the choice of saying, hey, I'm going to record my browser tab. You may remember this from our Meet webinar. Same thing. I can record my browser. I can record my desktop, which is what I always do. I just record the entire desktop so that way I can move around pretty freely. And then I can also record my webcam or just my webcam. Just record like face-to-face, just saying, hey, how are you going, and all that kind of thing. Down here, this is where you set up your microphone. So if you use an external microphone like I am, you can choose that. Or, and I just lost that page, so we go back to this. There we go. You can set up your microphone, and then you can choose to use the webcam. And when you embed your webcam, you show up in a little box on your screen. Now, studies have shown that connection, that visual connection to you, can be really powerful and important to some students. I don't particularly use it, but you certainly could. And you've probably seen videos of people recording their screen with that little box in the corner. You just have to tick that and go from there, okay? So hopefully that's relatively simple. We'll ignore some of the stuff that's happening up here for now. And I just want to give you an idea of what this will look like when you record, okay? So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to head over to one of my favorite websites. If you know me, you know I have a slight obsession with the arts and culture site for Google. So it's artsandculture.google.com. And what I love about this website is the ability to connect today to a lot of these beautiful and historic elements. And I'm not just going to say paintings, but there's artifacts buried into this website that you can really dig out and make very useful. And I think screencasting around that is a great idea. You can. And
before you get too excited, Jim, because I'm worried that you're now going to explain Google Arts and Culture and how powerful it is. On next Thursday, we are doing a full webinar on exploring the world using Google tools, and we will definitely be looking at Google Arts and Culture in even more detail.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I love it. It's so maybe I shouldn't go into it too much. I always have to temper myself here. Don't say that, Jim. Anyway, so it's great. So we all know this painting. Perhaps you do if you're a Ferris Bueller's Day Off fan, as all of you are. And if you haven't seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off, stop, leave, go watch it, come back. Okay. It's everybody's growing up movie. So anyways, when I click on this, it takes me into the Seurat painting, and it's a beautiful painting, and I might want to talk about this, and so I might say, hey, I want to make a connection to this around society and culture and what Bueller, what this might look like in today's world. Okay, so I just come up here. I hit the Screencastify button again, my extension, and then I'm going to record my desktop. I could record my tab for now, but you heard me already talk about that. And then I hit record. And so now it just says, hey, which of the screens you're using do you want to use? I'm going to choose my internal display, and I'm going to hit share. So I'm using 2 screens here. Beautiful countdown. Hey, everybody, I just want to walk you through this beautiful painting by Seurat. And as I zoom in, I just want to point out a few incredible features that are going on here. And so this should be more smooth, by the way, but who knows what's happening. And so I can move this painting around, and I can have a conversation around what this looks like. And just as it always happens, Chris, when you're doing a recording like this, it's just sort of pausing on me. But this is a really seamless zoom in, and I could zoom into these pieces and talk about pixelization, and we can also talk about how society is gathered up on this lawn, and talk about some of the other connections that Seurat's made across the river there. We can even go in and move in, if I can try to make that work, down here in the corner and talk about why there's a monkey in the picture. Over here on the left, during my recording, I have a pen tool, so I can highlight certain elements here. I can erase those elements. And then I can also, just embed my webcam immediately right away, or I just get rid of all those things. It's just such a cool feature set that's here. Okay, and then once we have all that done, we can just go ahead, come over here, and I can pause it. So if I have to cough or something, I can pause my recording, and then I can certainly just end it. Okay, and once I've ended that recording. And I've lost my screen.
So I think just while we get that screen back, I think one of the things that we're trying to do with one machine is to both stream video into this webinar and also record the screen. So the graphics card is like, "Oh, leave me alone. What are you doing to me?"
I have a lot of windows open, so potentially not the smartest way to run a webinar. But okay, so we're back with my screen, so it's no big deal. And so what's happened here is that once I've done my recording, I stopped it. I'm up here on the screen, and then I can. We're going to skip the tour. And this is the video that I just made. Okay, so I can play that. Hey everybody, I just want to walk you through this beautiful painting. And that's great. And when I'm in here, and let's say I flubbed up the beginning, or maybe I was busy trying to find how to stop recording at the end, I can use these scissors and trim those things up. Okay, so I can actually trim up that video if I want. Hey everybody, I just want to walk you through this beautiful. And then and I think that's a great tool feature as well. Okay, so now I have my video, and you probably notice off here in the right-hand side, because you remember I signed into my Google account, that this is now saving to my Google Drive. And so immediately, it's already going to be in my Drive. So I don't have to worry about anything else. It's saved in my Drive, and then I can do what I want with it from there. I can upload it to my Google Classroom from Drive if I want. I could embed it into my slide presentation. Or I can just come over here under the share button and share it directly into Google Classroom. Okay, so that I love that the ability to be able to do that. It's just a quick and easy button to go. Right now it's called Untitled, so I can come up here and I can just be talk about my Seurat. I think it's SUERAT. I think discussion. And see how it go. If that's spelled wrong, forgive me. We'll move on. Painting by Seurat, and that keeps happening. So I love the ability to just have it capture right straight to Drive, and that's as simple as it gets, Chris. And if you don't want to do anything fancy, That's it. And it's important probably to talk about a few things here about good practice, right? Like I think I'm just showing it to you here live, and it's potentially not something I'm going to keep. But I think what's important really is to talk about some of the things that you can do when you're recording to make it just a little bit easier for you.
And just while you take a breath for a second, Jim, I think that's a really good point that you've just made there. It's like, this isn't what I'm going to particularly keep. And what I love about using Screencastify is that I reckon I get it right first time all the time. I never do, right? But the beauty of Screencastify is if you're making a 2-minute video, your video it'll take you 2 minutes and 30 seconds to make and to share. It's not, if you want to be really quick about kind of just being, making quality, but actually doing it really quickly. And if it doesn't work, then you just delete it and do it again. It's 2 minutes out of your life that you've lost forever, and you will never ever get back. But I think it's so quick and so easy that it takes some of that fear of saying, God, is this going to take me 5 hours to make a 2-minute video? It takes some of that fear out of that.
That's right, Chris. And I think everybody puts that on themselves, right? They're like, oh, because making a narrative movie does take time. If you're telling a story, a deep story, then you obviously want to make time for that. But for those of us who are just getting started, especially using a free version, don't go crazy. If you fall in love with it, if you're finding this useful with your students and it's working, then think about, okay, what else can I be doing? What other things can I be adding to my video? What other elements should I be including? Should I change? Should I get some lighting? Should I get another microphone? All those things that we think we have to have to start. No, just go down and dirty, get it done, and then share it out with your students, and then ask for feedback. Right? They always say, Google says, launch early and iterate. Just use the free version and move on. And if you find yourself really loving it, then make the effort. Okay, so I'm letting this thing save. I'm actually suspicious that it's probably already saved, but I want to share with you a couple other things. So I can click right here. I can get the shareable link, and I can share that with you guys right now. Boom, I could be done. But if I scroll down, these new features are here, Chris, and I think there's some really cool ability to download this. So I could download this to my hard drive if I felt the need to. I could export it as an MP4 because right now it's a different format. So I could export an MP4, which is your typical video format. And then we could even rip off the visuals and get some and just have audio, which is great. If you we'll go back to our webinar around around Google Slides. This is what I use just to rip the audio. But some of the things I want to mention to you when you're doing this is that you might want to think about a couple things. One, we know you hate the sound of your voice. Like, we know that. And you also don't like to have your image up on the screen. And we know that too. But I want to just remind you that we've been listening to that voice for a long time. And if we're used to it, it's time for you to get used to it. So you sound just like that. And if you have your image up on the screen and you're worried about that, you actually look like that too. And that's it. And so the sooner you get over that, the more useful this will become. And so I know that sounds, maybe it hurts a little bit, but it's really the truth, right? So just sort of get over your voice and get over the way you look and just go on, because your kids aren't worried about it, right? And you're able to kind of share out some good stuff. The other thing I want to mention to you is that you might want to consider doing a countdown. So I love to go in and when I'm recording for real, I would count down like 3, 2, 1, and it sort of settles me and it lets me go, and then I can just trim that off in the front. I can just wait till the 3, 2, 1, and I can just trim that off. Okay. Just some things to be thinking about. It's really great when you're making a movie and you're editing something with your voice that you could say, you make that real conscious effort to say 3, 2, 1. The other thing is that maybe if somebody can share it into that into the chat, there's a great Screencastify has a list of all their shortcuts, and that makes it really easy. I didn't use any shortcuts in this because I'm just trying to model where the buttons are. But you could use some shortcuts, and your keyboard shortcuts make you a lot quicker in this, especially when you're trying to stop your video and you stop recording. You just use the keyboard shortcut to stop. And then lastly, you probably see my smiling cursor. I actually have, I've installed a Chrome extension called Custom Cursor for Chrome. And there's lots of these. Just you go search Chrome, the Chrome store for any one of these if you can install it. And I love it because I just picked one with a smiley face, and then I can come up here and actually increase the size of my my mouse. And that's really helpful when you're doing things out there that that require kids to see what you're clicking, and people like yourselves that want to see where I'm clicking. Incredible feature. Sorry, I keep starting that video. And it's anyways, it's just some extra things to be thinking about in that. Okay.
So Jim, just in terms of setting up those keyboard shortcuts, because there is, and it's actually within the options of the Screencastify extension under the hamburger menu. So I don't know if you want to just pull it up there. Yeah,
this hamburger menu.
That hamburger menu on the left-hand side, and then under options in that hamburger, it'll give you all of the links to, and you can actually, what I like about that is you can actually then change the keyboard shortcuts yourself. So it has a list of them, but you can even then go on and change them to the ones that you want right away. Yeah,
that's great. And when after you're done recording, by the way, you can access all your recordings from there as well. So it's good. You when you've done this, by the way, when you've installed Screencastify, you now have a folder inside of your Google Drive that's called Screencastify, where you're going to find all of these pieces. Okay, all the videos that you've made. It's good.
Jim, I'm just thinking, Jim, as well. I know it's taking a little bit of time to encode that video, but my nerd brain is absolutely telling me that when I record like a 3-minute video, it takes about 20 seconds to 30 seconds to upload to Drive. But what we're doing is using the graphics card to run the webinar, and also using the graphics card to try and process this video and upload it to Drive. So we're probably stretching it, trying to do both of those things at the same time.
That and I live in Melbourne, and the upload speeds here are probably 0.2 megabits per second. So
wow.
Sorry, I just had to throw that in there. Thank you, Telstra. And it's really I should have said that. Can we edit that out?
Can we just cut that bit out? Because Phil does have a question about Screencastify working on Chrome on the iPad. No extension. The extensions on Chrome iPad browser do not work. I am right in saying that, I think, Jim. No extension.
I'm going to share something a little bit later it's going to make it work.
Okay, so that is why you should be getting Chromebooks instead of iPads. No, let's move on. We're losing it, Jim. We're losing it. Let's pull it back together.
All right. So yeah, sorry. Anyway, so look, I'm not worried about that video. It's uploaded now. It doesn't matter. I could click here. I didn't need to show you that anyways. You saw the idea. I can just click there and get the link. I can come down here, and I want to show you something under share. Share button. You're like, oh, I can publish the classroom in YouTube. That's great, and that's fun. But I want to share with you down here under more options. I can even create a QR code, so I can actually make this video, put a QR code up on my wall. You know, maybe I have some sort of instructional setup on my wall. I can actually put in a QR code next to that. Kids could rock up with their phone, boom, and then it's me talking about that. Okay, it's me talking about whatever instructions or whatever process. Or now I'm just brainstorming. Imagine having kids who've made a project, then they've recorded themselves going over that project. You take that QR code, you stick it up next to that picture, and now kids are able to do that. We've seen other programs do that, but now it's here inside of Screencastify as well.
And that's such an awesome example again of capturing evidence of learning. And
sure.
I know we're looking from a teacher's perspective at this one, but from kids recording and creating presentations and creating their own screencasts, and then having the QR code as your exhibition of learning, and parents walking around. I mean, socially distanced, obviously, but parents walking around and looking at the QR codes and watching videos. It really excites me. I think it's such a beautiful way to take the digital into the analog as well.
Yeah, you're right, but it also using those devices too. That's where Phil's iPads will come in, right? They could go up and just sort of capture that QR code.
Or Chromebooks, obviously. Chromebooks would work beautifully.
And then you can send in an email. Does anybody use email anymore? I don't know. No. So if I go down here and I click on this more share options, check this out. And this is really something I want to share with you guys. So if I go to Edpuzzle, do you guys know Edpuzzle? It's so cool. It's this Edpuzzle is a website that allows you to take video and add little questions pieces to it, right? So check it out. I'm going to turn that on. Wakelet's in here, Reminds in there. I'm not sure what those are, so I'm going to skip it. So I'm going to go back into my record, whatever, my library. Let me go back here. I've turned that on. I'm going to go back. Here's my video. Now Edpuzzle is at the top of that list. Sorry, this is probably going to start playing when it loads. And then I go here to upload to Edpuzzle, and this is fantastic. It takes me over to Edpuzzle. I just have to make sure that I'm signed in. I did all that before. And then it's saying, hey, click on here to start uploading that Syrah discussion from Google Drive. Remember, your Screencastify videos saved to your Google Drive. And so that goes in there. Okay, so now that's let's just say that's happening. And then I'm going to go here. I'm going to show you just what that looks like in my own content. So Edpuzzle is a whole nother program. It's a whole nother opportunity for discussion, by the way. In here, inside of Edpuzzle, then I want to share with you an example that I made before. And so I can take a video that I uploaded and put that here. And then, so I've got this video. This is a video I got stole from YouTube, which you can do in Edpuzzle. And then I can come in here and add an open-ended question. I could add multiple choice questions. I can have audio. I can add audio to it. So, for example, if I move the cursor here, just let this play for a second, and I pause. I don't have to pause, but I can come in here. I'm just going to edit, and then let's just move the cursor to right about there.
This is intermission.
Okay, and then I can go ahead and add questions. So if I click on this, I can go here, add a note, and then I can use this microphone, and I can add audio into this. Now I can add audio across the entire video that I made, or I can just add audio into this note. What happens is this video will play for your students. It'll stop at these little markers that you put in here. They either have to answer the question or listen to your audio or read whatever note you've left before they can continue. And you can set it up to where you have to answer it before you can continue, or you can just set it up to where they can continue without answering it. Imagine taking your voice, your screencast of maybe something you're sharing, and then bringing it in here, and then asking these guiding questions across the video, just to maybe check for understanding, but also just to add more, right? Just to add more, like special notes. Hey, I want you to notice this the inside, the artwork inside this building, or something like that, right? This geeks me up really badly, Chris. Like this is something that I just go, oh, I love it. You know, it's there's something really fantastic about the connection that they've made with Edpuzzle with these recordings, right?
And I think when we talk about, our design principles, Jim, of that really rich learning experiences, what we're doing there is you're taking video. I know this one's from YouTube, but essentially it could be the screencast that you've made yourself.
Right.
And you can test for knowledge and understanding, that kind of bottom end of the Bloom's taxonomy pyramid. But then you can have some more open-ended questions about reflection, about analysis, and saying, oh, what's your opinion on this, or evaluation level questions. And that's what I love about the ability to bring together. And I think on Screencastify, they call it the app smash page, is because you're smashing these apps together in extensions. So you've got Screencastify, you create something awesome, but then you smash it into Edpuzzle, and suddenly you've created something at a next level. And then sharing your Edpuzzle through Google Classroom and all the kind of, I love the ecosystem that we've got with G Suite in the center and Classroom and things like that. And then these other additional pieces around the outside can really deepen those incredibly rich learning experiences. So thanks for that, Jim.
I totally agree. And it, again, I think before with Edpuzzle, we could just use videos that we found from the web, or I had to take my screencast and upload it to another service and then access it from here. And now we just take out that middle piece and just connect them right there. Look, Edpuzzle is you use it for free. There's obviously other levels of it. You have X amount of recordings that you can make under your content. They also have badging if you really want to look at it. And it's really kind of fun. And but ultimately, they have a huge and rich, just like Screencastify, a rich resource section that you can just go and edit on your own. I'm obviously not doing it justice here, But it's if you really get into it and you're very interested, just go and look on Edpuzzle. There's tons of videos and stuff that you can access.
Jim, Joanna just asked about where do the kids' answers go, and in Edpuzzle you can set it up so that you actually have your students in there, and you can use it as almost a class assessment. So if you wanted to use it as a summative assessment piece, then you can actually have it in there with the kids' answers actually recorded into Edpuzzle as well. So when you add them in, you can use it as an assessment tool. And
Edpuzzle's connected to Google Classroom, so you really, there's a lot there for us to be for us to show, and we don't necessarily have time to dig deep into Edpuzzle, but I just wanted you to have that extra connection to the screencast that you're making. Again, we talked about we can make our screencast and just share it with our students, right? That's it. We can level it up by bringing it over to Edpuzzle and add questions and other elements to it that ensure that kids are watching, right? Like there's even a piece in here that doesn't even let you skip, so they can't skip ahead. And so it's a really, I love the connection to it. They've been celebrating it online these last week or so. It's relatively a new feature that I felt like it was important for us to share.
And Joanna is already an expert. She used Screencastify after the last webinar, so we expect Joanna to be using Edpuzzle. Yeah. And so when you come back at the next webinar, you can tell us all about it.
I'm going to need to see that tomorrow, right? Okay, yeah. So make sure we get on board. And so, thanks, Joanna. Thanks for always coming and watching.
Are we going from the sublime to the ridiculous now? Is this the Bitmoji moment?
Yeah, Heather's going to love this next one, because when we talk, so I'm stealing this from my Facebook group. Forgive me, Facebook mania people. I literally I wanted to capture this, and if you're really interested in finding out where I got all these resources from, just let me know. And but I wanted to share this one, Chris, is when we're talking about screencasting. Have you seen this before? People are using Google Slides. No, be prepared, Heather. Have you seen people using Google Slides to recreate classrooms? Like this is we talked about this before, how you can go into your Google Slides and change the from like this, like whatever, 16:9 sort of size box to any shape you want. So I went ahead and made a Google slide that meets the requirements for the header in Google Classroom. Okay. And so what I love about this is so I have this, and I'm using my Bitmojis. I'm using Bitmojis to walk through my classroom, right? So I'm pretending like this is what my classroom would look like. I've made these are all just elements that you can do, and this is a pretty hot item thing out on online now that people are doing this, and so then I'm just going from these 7 slides. I'm just arrowing through these 7 slides, and look at me. I'm just like, I'm walking around. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And it's, there you go. This is my favorite little piece. So then I can come up here and I can actually capture this. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to present.
So you've made it like a flip book. Is that right, Jim? So like you click through and it's like one of those flip animation pieces, right? Yeah. That's
exactly right. So I'm going to go full screen, but then I'm going to go here and I'm going to exit this. So that way, I at least have the controls for my Screencastify up here. You see how I did that? Watch the recording if you missed it. And then I go up here and I go to Screencastify, and then I come here and I'm gonna turn off the mic because I don't need it. And then I'm gonna hit record. Okay, so I'm just gonna record this, and I'm gonna go to this display. I hope this works. And it's and then I'm just gonna let this count down. And I knew this would happen. I did the wrong thing. So, but pretend that's working. I go like this, and oh, come on! I don't want this. What have I done?
You're trying to rub it out, aren't you? Can you use your arrow key?
This is now I'm completely out of control. So I'm just going to stop it really quickly. I'm sorry. I was really nervous about this, and now it's just that screen again. It's happening. Let me do it again. I'm going to do it again. Oh, look at me.
Don't stare at him. Everyone look away. Just no one look at him.
Come on, you guys. This has never happened to you before, has it? So I'm going to erase what I have.
While you're doing that, Jim, I think you have been generous enough. So if you want to get yourself set up, you've been generous enough to share this Bitmoji slide master for anyone who wants to do this themselves. So again, very high expectations. We've just popped that into the chat. that everyone here is going to go away and make their own ridiculous, by the way, Bitmoji classroom.
Yeah, do me a big favor. Take my Bitmoji out, right? Just take my Bitmoji out.
Oh no, I thought everyone was just going to use you, right? No.
I would feel awkward about that, but I can understand. I can understand. I'm just going to practice this. I just want to make sure that this is working. All right. So okay, let me try it one more time, and I'm trying to be more deliberate. So I'm going to go ahead and record this, and then I'm going to record, make that screen. I think this is what the problem is. I have so many screens going, and then I'm just going to click here, and I'm just going to move my character through this. Okay, and that's it. That's all I'm going to do. And then I'm just going to pause it. Pretend like I did that wonderfully, and then look, it happened again. So don't do this while sharing on a live webinar. That's my only caveat. Don't do it while doing it. So this is what I love. So I just, what I did is I just captured these like 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That's all I did. And then what I want you to see is that, okay, pretend that that's working. You can probably see my screen. My screen should come back up for you guys. And then check this out down here. Under download, I can come down here and export this as an animated, here comes GIF. Okay.
GIF.
So, I know, just let feel free. And by the way, Heather, you're right. I'm just being more truthful in my Bitmoji. So once that's done, I can then export this as a GIF. And this is what I love about it, right? So I'm just going to say, whatever. I'm going to make it as large as possible, and then I hit export. And then that is now downloading into. I can download this as soon as it's done. I can download this onto my my Chromebook, or I can just grab it out of my Google Google Drive. And this is so. What you may or may not know, and I hope I'm making sense here because I'm a little bit flustered, is that what you may or may not know is that once this is downloaded, I can come over here to my Google Classroom. And when I go to upload photo, your Google Classroom, this piece here, actually takes GIFs. So I know it's like
that was the wow moment there. It was like, what?
It does. That's crazy. So I just want to share with you. I actually made one earlier, so I'll just do that instead of waiting for that to go. Oh, it's ready. I'm going to go back. Look, this is the worst thing to do. So I'm going to download it here. Maybe that'll work. Come on, maybe I know you can do it. So I tell you what, I'll just show you what the other one looks like, just to be able to do that. Let me just go here, and I've lost my other screen, and then we'll go from there. So there we go. It's back here. So if I go into this, this is it right here. So check it out. So this can sit in your Google Classroom, and you can easily create this and just add it into your Google Classroom. So the whole point of me showing you that chaotic little demo was that I can use Google Slides to create a really cool and fun Bitmoji, and then I can take my Google slide, record that animation by just going one page at a time. And then I can export that as a GIF, and then I can come over to my Google Classroom and hit upload photo and drop it right here. And it's that's just a really fun, really interesting way that I feel like it was worth sharing. I feel like it maybe was a little bit flustered just because I'm obviously experiencing some drama over here, but I hope that will be helpful to you. And Chris, can I share one final thing?
You can do whatever you want, man.
Good. Let me say this. And I feel like I'm overloading everybody, but if you go to Screencastify, if you go to screencastify.com, they have a new feature called Submit. And so you have to register for the beta. You have to register for the beta. So I'll just show you. If we go to screencastify.com and then go in here. Thank you, Joanna. If you go in here and go under products and then down here to submit, you can register for early access to this thing called this new opportunity to share screencast assignments with your students. So hear me out with this. So if you don't have Screencastify available to you on your school account, I would say go get it on your personal account. And then apply for this beta, because what you can do with this beta is I can come and create a new assignment. I'll just show you this one. So I can come here and create a new assignment, and I can say, hey, what do you think is happening in this painting titled In the Loge? And then I add the link to that painting into this assignment description. Okay. And then I hit next. And then I can say to you, okay, I want my students, when they receive this link to record from a webcam and their microphone. So that's just me talking to my phone. Or I can say, I want you to be able to capture your screen and your microphone. And your students don't need this Screencastify extension. They just need the link, and it will record their screen and their microphone, not their face, but their microphone, or their webcam and their microphone, which is what you would use with your mobile device. Okay. So if I say, hey, I want you to talk me through this problem, or I want you to show me on the screen what we're talking about, or I want you to look at this image of mitochondria and walk me through the bits and pieces of it. And then I just have to just select screen and microphone. And then I get an email when you've submitted it. And then I hit, that's it, and I save it. So here's the link. I just go here to copy this link. And then, and that's it. And you know where it goes, Chris? Guess where it goes?
Into my Google Drive, Jim.
What? How did you know that?
That's amazing.
So inside my Google Drive, I have a screencasting folder, right? And inside my Screencastify submit folder is my question. And then here are my submissions. Don't worry about that middle one. That was just a test. And then, so that was actually from my phone. The middle one's from my phone. The far right one's from my just from my computer. And then the one on the left is you, Chris. And it's so again, I'll just repeat it. Your kids don't need Screencastify. They just need the link. So I can link to that in my Google, in my stream, or I can make an assignment out of it. And my students can just click on that link and record their screens and submit their thinking. They just model their thinking with that, just like we talked about at the start. Anyways, I know that was a lot for me to share. I'm a little bit geeked out about Screencastify because I feel like there's a lot of uses, but a lot of those things can be done with any program. It's just that submit thing that I just shared with you that's extra special to me.
So what we're going to do is, Jeannie, if you can just put up my demo screen with the slide for a second, is we spent quite a bit of time on Screencastify. Hopefully you'll see that the theory will hold whatever screencasting program you use. There are lots of great features in Screencastify, which we love, but the idea of screencasting and using video, the theory is there as well, whatever you use. And there are some alternatives. So one of the alternatives that you can use is Google Meet. So as you know, I'm sure if you've been having a go at using it as a distance learning synchronous platform, you can get into a Google Meet and you can invite lots of people into it and you can do a webinar, and that's awesome. But you can also get into a Google Meet, you can share your screen, and you can record the Google Meet itself. So if you haven't got access to Screencastify right now, then what you're still able to do is to record the Google Meet. And that is just in the options button, which I'm going to just pull up for 1 second. Meet.google.com. I forgot to open this up before, Jim, but I'll not tell anyone that. I'll just pretend I was doing it deliberately, okay? So just skip that one. Is once I'm in my Meet, and hopefully I won't get any echoing or anything, is I might want to share my screen and have some slides up there or something like that. And then what I'm going to do is record my video. Oh, you know what? I'm doing the same thing as you. I'm trying to use a video and a video. So we're streaming. We're streaming, and we are. Oh, you can see the back. You can see the other angle of my room. I forgot about that. I hope it's not too messy. Is the option in here to just click on this and to record the Meet. So in those three little dots, come on, Google Meet. In the three little dots, I have the option to record the meeting. So that saves directly into Drive, and you get a notification. Oh, that's a bad angle. That's a bad side to me, Jim. You should have told me that. I get the option to have that saved. Sorry, it gets saved at my Google Drive, and I'll get an email telling me where that is. So if I wanted to do a presentation and a little bit of a input, I could do that through Google Meet. That's definitely one option. If I'm using Chromebooks or I'm using a mobile device, then I can actually also install Google Classroom app. And we looked at this really briefly the other day. But if you look at the Google Classroom app, so this is important. This isn't the Google Classroom browser. This is actually the mobile app. And because I'm using a Chromebook, I can obviously have Android apps in there as well. Or I could be using it on a telephone or an iPad or something like that. I can use it on a mobile device. When I open up, I'm in our distance learning classroom right now, I'm in my classwork. I'm going to add, I'm actually going to add a material. And I'm going to tell you why I'll do that in a second. The important thing about this material is it's not for all students. It's just for Alfred. So that's done. And this is some feedback. And the beauty of the, so we're thinking about using video feedback as well. And the beauty, and also obviously the students can use this if they have mobile devices with the Classroom app on them, is that I can add it to a topic maybe, and I might have a topic in here called My Feedback, which I do. And then I can attach, and the attach is just a paper clip up here at the top. And when I click on that, because I'm using a mobile, or I'm using a Chromebook in this case, but something that has a webcam, is I can actually record video directly into Google Classroom. So I might click on that record video. It'll pop up with the option to do that. I can also do that with the camera app directly into my Chromebook and record directly in the camera app. But essentially, I'm going to hit the video here. Alfred, I really love the work that you've done, and I might even hold up that work. I'm trying to find something that I can hold up here. I love this bit. And you know when we're talking about, analog and digital, it's like I can actually look at the work. And I used to use this when I was actually in class next to students, when I wasn't 1.5 meters away, and record that feedback for them on their work in Classroom. So that's there as a kind of record. And then that's there. And because I've used it in distance classroom, I've got it to one student. I'm just sending it to Alfred. And I put it into his feedback. That's now going to appear in his feedback topic in Google Classroom. And he has a video of me kind of pointing at stuff and maybe using my finger to circle things, or even just a video of me feeding back in that way as well. So that's the kind of two of many other ways that we can capture video.
It's such a cool feature using that app, and I think Chris, that's something we should be very conscious of, is to provide feedback like that, right? Imagine just sharing your screen if you were using like Screencastify or any other screen recording program, and literally just going over a kid's work, putting that up on a screen and then going over that kid's work with a mouse, or just or even in that case, what you have is just even annotating. That Google Classroom app annotates on top of kids' work.
And even I used to use this as well, and just thinking about this was with my phone, and actually I had a really nice little Android tablet, and I was using my tablet, and I would have the students doing because I used to teach French and Spanish. I'd have the students doing like languages presentations and be able to record it in the Classroom app and just put it directly into their classroom. So like capturing presentations and capturing that kind of thing, we can do really easily using the Classroom app as well. We still have time, a little tiny bit of time left, and you, my friend, I think are going to show us something which I'm very excited about. This is really leveling up, right? It's the video.
That's right. We talk about, well, there's Screencastify and there's other programs, but really we're trying to focus on doing this using these web devices, or just accessing the web. And one of my favorites now is WeVideo. And it's I think what's really cool about WeVideo is that WeVideo has the ability to do screencasts as well. So if I go to WeVideo, I sign in, and I can actually come in here and say, I want to record both my screen and my webcam. Then I can put this into a project, and then I can go and record something. I'm just going to allow this to get these settings allowed. And then here's me again, and then it's telling me which cameras I'm using. That's fine. And then I hit next, and I just get the right display, and I go from here. All that stuff is similar, right? We're looking at almost the exact same thing as we just saw. And here's just me moving my mouse around, and then I'm done, right? So I can go in here and be done with it. And so let's go in there, and I've lost my button here. I think I'm still inside of my recording, and then. Either way, it's a really cool and easy feature for us to be able to play around with, okay? So we're just doing a screen recording, is great. And there's probably some sort of button here. I'm losing my mind today. I love that we're recording. Anyway, so it's just going to probably record for the duration. But I want you to also just, let me see if I can do this. I can go into another window. I should have gotten more sleep last night, perhaps. Let me go back into this WeVideo program. And I just want to share with you an example of what this looks like here. So you could go in and record yourself talking to, oh, I've lost my screen again. That's crazy. Let me go into this. I'm just trying to look over my camera. There we go. What is happening today, Chris?
I don't know, my friends.
I feel like we've done this before.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is me in a project. Okay, so I'm now inside of a project, so that I recorded myself. You can see I'm down here on the timeline, and this is just me sort of saying, "Hey, I just wanted to talk to you about, whatever it is," and so I can not only just record this and say, "Hey, kids, this is instruction that I want you to be able to follow," but because this is maybe a video about New York, we shared this in our Google Classroom session. I can bookend this with video that I can easily access from the stock media. So if I'm talking about New York, for example, I can come in here and just search New York, and here's just a ton of video, royalty-free stock footage that I can use in my video. And what I love about this is that now I've got this great video of New York, and then I can let that play as I introduce the concept. And then down below, I can even come in here and add, I added some 1920s sort of, music. And then even further down, I added, you can see how this is sort of noisy. I added some city noise, because this stock video doesn't come with any noise. I don't know how well you can hear it, but I'll just sort of play it. Hey everybody, it's time for us to start looking at New York City in the 1920s. So what a cool way to just sort of embellish your lesson a little bit with a little bit of flavor and sound and just ambient sound. And then as I'm done here, I'll just sort of move past at the end. As I'm done, I'm like, okay, let's get started to discover that. Just more beautiful stock footage to get kids. Oh, listen to the music. Nailed it, right? And it's I just think when you're ready, you can go into another program, which, by the way, is being offered for free right now. WeVideo is a U.S.-based company, so they're offering this for a long time for free, and even the department has an opportunity to be able to have access to this for free for the rest of the year. And so this is a really great feature, a really great way to sort of take your screencasts, and maybe just your voice, just your face, and really level it up and embellish it a little bit.
And again, that comes down to, and I think Jim and I both love doing this, right? We love messing around and being creative where we can with film, and Jim does it properly. I just mess around. But if you want to level up, then there's the option to do that on Chromebooks in the cloud. And the thing I love about WeVideo is I feel quite comfortable with it. If I've used things like iMovie, or I've used any kind of movie production with multiple audio tracks and multiple video tracks, it's very, very, it feels very comfortable. One of the things I've never personally done, but I know you can do, is you can also make these collaborative as well. So students could be using WeVideo collaboratively to be creating video together. So it's a really exciting next level, which is why we haven't spent loads of time on it, but a next leveling up of your video skills.
Yeah. There's so many. That's like, we could talk about video all day, I think, but it's and this isn't really about screencasting, but literally getting kids to be able to edit each other's work, or edit one project from a bin or a folder of project media that other kids have contributed to. It really does go. It goes beyond a little bit, and I think there's green screening in here, and there's lots of other things, and even some really cool text graphics and animations that I think you might be very interested in. All of those things should be
Have I lost Jim? All right, I think Jim is taking a quick break. So George, if you want to just share my screen, my demo screen, please. So essentially, I think Jim got so excited about video editing because that's his passion area, one of his many passion areas. He is absolutely so great at this kind of stuff, and please feel free to reach out to him if you're interested in doing more of this video. We do have time for a couple more questions if there are any. I'll just move through the slides, and if any questions come into the live comments, then we can pick them up from. I can pick them up there. I just got your message, George. Thank you for that. So we'll keep going. What we would love, and this is really important, if you don't mind, is that the reason that we're allowed to do these webinars and to do them for no charge to anyone, which is great, is because they get good feedback, or they get feedback which says, yeah, this is useful for teachers. So feedback is a gift. We have very tough skin, so don't worry about telling us what does work and what doesn't work for you. And we do take that feedback and act upon it. So please, it would be wonderful if you don't mind being able to fill in the feedback form, which the genie has just put into the chat there for you. Thank you for joining us from Jim and myself. If you want to reach out and contact any of us to talk a little bit more about this, our details are there for you. Please, if you're interested in doing anything around video particularly, then Jim there's no better person using video and with kids and video in the cloud. Just a little reminder about the Teach from Home site for you guys. It's still a wonderful, but now badly named website. This is really about teaching from anywhere, and more importantly, learning from anywhere. So just a little reminder that is there. And the other resources that are there are tons of them out there. So there's the Teacher Center, there's YouTube, there's the EDU in 90 series, and the Google for Education like that. So if you've signed up for one of these webinars, and you haven't just kind of got the link, then and George has just put it in the chat as well, is if you sign up for these, then you will get all of the resources and upcoming webinars. Next week, we're looking at some, I think, really exciting stuff around bringing in Google Earth and Google Arts and Culture, and taking the learning outside of the classroom. And maybe it's going to be harder for us to do field trips and things like that. So, you two finally turned up. I've already finished. And
yeah, I completely just lost my internet completely.
Can I just say, I don't know if you heard that before.
I haven't heard anything. I don't know what you've been saying for the last 3 minutes, which is always dangerous. So.
No, but Jim mentioned a certain telco at one point during the webinar, and I feel like they've cut the wire. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah, they're like, okay, and you guys are out.
And you're out.
Yeah. Have you ever talked about feedback and about
next week is super exciting. We're going outside of the classroom. We're going on virtual field trips. We're going to look at art and culture and maps and all kinds of awesome stuff. So that's next Thursday. So make sure you sign up using the link which is in the chat, and that will get you and access to the previous webinars and access to the upcoming webinar.
And we do also have one more webinar after that, which we have pivoted from what was originally. I just thought I'd use the word pivot because it hasn't been overused this year at all. Pivoted from the original plan, and we are going to be doing one, I guess, exclusively on inclusive technologies, accessibility stuff, which we'll probably do more of again next term as well, because I know that there is a lot to cover in that as well.
And just on that, Kimberly, that's because we love the feedback, and when we get feedback, we act on it. So one of the things that we found was important from the feedback is accessibility. So that's why we've pivoted in these unprecedented times. And so just a reminder, fill in the feedback form.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Right. And I don't know if you guys just seen that Heather has just put in the chat that because you guys have totally inspired her to sit her level 1 educator exam this weekend, which is awesome, Heather. And we wish you the best of luck. And please make sure you come back next week and tell us how you go, because it is a great learning experience.
Hey, can I just mention there? One thing is that, Heather, I took because I needed to renew, because the level educator exams, they run out after 2 years. I needed to renew my level 2, which I did last week. And it was very nerve-wracking for me, but I got it. So thanks very much, and congratulations to me. But the man who helped me prepare for it, I didn't cheat, but I was extremely well prepared, is Jim Sill. So thanks.
You're welcome. I'm sure you wouldn't have passed without me. But it's you should know, Heather, that if you go and you take the level 2 before July 10, then you can apply for the Google Certified Innovator Academy that is now online this year. And it's so it's a virtual innovator academy happening like between, it's like August, September, October. It's like they're just stretching it out, and it's all virtual, and all you have to do is have your level 2. So get that level 1, and then get your level 2, which is, just a couple extra bits and bobs, and then you can go ahead and apply by July 10, and you can be on a webinar too.
And if you are watching this and you don't know what we're talking about, Google the Google Teacher Center, and you will find all of the information there. We have a whole training section, and we also have a certification section, and there are 4 different levels of certification that we have available for educators. And I know Chris, Jim, and I are big proponents of doing that, because it really did help to shape our professional and personal lives. So that's how we all met.
That's right.
All right.
It's true. It's totally true.
Okay, so we are over time, which is a real shock because you guys are usually so punctual. I think the Teacher Centre is just in the chat. Please do join us again next week. We are going to cover, please, as I've said every other time, we really do appreciate your feedback. So it does help us to shape where we go from here. And we wish everybody the best of luck as you begin in Victoria, as you begin the transition back into school with students next week, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye, guys. See you later.
Bye.